The following is a podcast of mystery, Encounters USA special presentation. Bonus outtakes after the outro. Hello everyone, I'm Matthew Heines for Encounters USA. We are your one-stop podcast and YouTube channel for all things alien, Bigfoot, and Dogman. So relax, kick up your feet, grab one of your favorite beverages, and enjoy the show. Shall I start, or are you going to let me?
I usually have the guests just kind of immediately hear their voice. Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm just going to jump on in here then, Jason. First of all, thanks for having me on the podcast of mystery. I was excited by the name of it because I don't know if you know this, but there are the trees of mystery down in Klamath in California.
Oh, really?
That's like a Bigfoot area. So you got to check that out sometime. And when I saw Podcast of Mystery, I thought, well, maybe I'll send him some pictures from my visit. But so let me introduce myself. I'm Matthew Heines. I have a podcast called Encounters USA. Should be fairly evident from the background and the T-shirt. We do have merchandise, obviously. So we do aliens, we do Bigfoot, we do Dogman. And the reason that I started this podcast about I think I'm on 2 years now, is just because there is so much evidence that's coming out now that says, well, not really now, it's been coming out for like 50 years. But Bigfoot seems to be associated with UFOs. And I'm into how, with the Dogman, it's kind of the same phenomenon. It's like, how do they get here? What is their, why can't we find them? And they seem to, a lot of people that I have talked to about this seem to think, and these are very credible people, these are scientists, these are researchers, these are professional people that say, well, yeah, they probably are coming in and out of portals. And there is it's the Pine, I can't remember, the Pine Ridge or something incident in 73 back in Pennsylvania and Indiana that the Close Encounters movie was based upon, Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Anyway, in those encounters, there were a lot of UFOs with Bigfoot associated with the UFOs, like right next to them and whatever. And luckily, during my interviews, I talked to Ron Moorhead, who is a famous Bigfoot researcher, and he was featured in David Paulides' Missing 411 about the Bigfoot camp up in the Cascades in California. So Ron he said that one of the guys he was with, they communicated with these Bigfoot, and it's very famous for their incident in the recording. But one of the guys he was with is a fireman, and he said down the hill he saw a Bigfoot with a UFO. And so these are really credible people. And so I started Encounters USA because I don't think we're just limited to a Bigfoot or a UFO or a Dogman or aliens. Somehow I think that they are all connected. Excuse me. And for a little bit of evidence, think of, Jason, I don't know how old you are. You're probably not as old as I am, but I remember the $6 Million Man. And you remember? And the $6 Million Man in 1975 was doing battle with Bigfoot and aliens. And so during the course of the show, this question keeps coming up. How does George Lucas and Steven Spielberg, how did they get to talk about Bigfoot and aliens? And they don't get ridiculed. But they seem to have all of this information that really seems to be right out of the files of the FBI or whatever. So that's what we do. We do Bigfoot, we do aliens and Dogman, and that's why we are looking for them together.
Maybe, I don't know, what's the difference between Bigfoot and Dogman?
Well, a Dogman, and I had not even heard of a Dogman until like two and a half years ago, right before I started doing the podcast. And it started with a movie or a book called The Beast of Bray Road. And I believe that's either Wisconsin or Michigan. And I'm sorry if I get it wrong, but it is a canine-like creature. It's about 10 feet tall, anywhere between 8 to 10 feet tall, bodybuilder physique, long fingers with claws, and walks on like dog legs. And it has all the features of a dog. And so more interesting facts came out, or not. I don't want to say facts, but more interesting information came out about the Dogman. Like I interviewed a guy who did an investigation outside of Monroe, where somebody reportedly hit a Dogman. We went out there, and I was shown on Highway 9 where this, it's not Highway 9, it's Highway 2, I think, where some woman smashed into a Dogman. It just basically appeared in front of her. She thought she smashed in the front of her car, and they were screaming, and they took off down the road, and they looked at the car. There was no damage to it. And then they, well, where did this thing go and what happened? So I can tell you more, but that's how I got into the Dogman thing, because they seem to be related and they seem to have a tie to Native Americans.
Are they, maybe it's a silly question, but are they any relation to like werewolves? Because they almost, when you describe them, it kind of brings up in my mind. Okay. So.
Not at all. And that's a good question to ask, because one thing that, I mean, we look into a few paranormal things that are associated with these things. And one of the ideas of the Dogman is this what's called a skinwalker. And when you talk about a werewolf, a skinwalker is not necessarily a werewolf. A skinwalker is a Native American entity. It comes from the Southwest, from the Zuni and the Hopi and the Navajo, and they would use these skinwalkers against their enemies. And they would, I don't want to get too far into it because I'm going to be wrong, but the skinwalkers are basically evil entities, and the natives think that these Dogmen are the skinwalkers, have something to do with it. Something that we've just looked at in a recent podcast was I talked to these guys that were down at a place called Skinwalker Ranch. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah.
So it is my idea, it is my theory that these Dogmen and these Bigfoot are coming out of a portal somewhere down there. And so I had a couple on there. I had a remote viewer. He's the head of the Mount Baldy Institute. He's a PhD out of Wazoo, and I'm also from Wazoo. I just want to throw that in there, in case you're a Husky, Jason.
No.
So, anyway, I had these guys on, and these guys were down there, and they had just, when they went down there, the guy that they were visiting had 3 Bigfoot come up and tear his lights, his motion lights, off of his RV, and they're 12 feet high. And he says they just walked up and tore them out, and then basically disappeared. Wow. So where did they come from? My question is, where do they come from? And let me just throw in this thing about WSU. I have a degree in history. I've been teaching for over 20 years, and I have a master's in education. So I'm not, I'm probably not your typical UFO person, but what I do on my show is we're not out to prove anything. What we're looking for is facts. We're looking for Like, what are the Bigfoot like? How do they interact socially? And how do we see repeated behaviors across, different accounts? And the same thing with UFOs, aliens, etc. Because when you're talking about aliens, you're not talking about one race. You're talking about many, and some of them have specific attributes. So we've gone Encounters USA. I usually like to say is more of a graduate level paranormal show. So we really like to compile evidence and say, well, that story sounds a lot like this other account. So that's kind of what we do.
And you kind of came on here today to talk about maybe some of your personal experiences in the paranormal.
Right. Now, let me start off by saying that I had never had any kind of paranormal experience. The one I'm going to talk about first is something that happened before I arrived at a certain location. The paranormal experience that I've had was at ECETI Ranch. And that's where anybody can go there and pretty much have the same experiences. And so we'll talk about that in a little bit. But the first one I'm going to talk about, I just want to preface that until I went to ECETI Ranch, I had never seen anything that I would classify as a UFO, alien, Bigfoot, whatever. These things just kind of have avoided me, and probably for good reason. But the first one I'm going to talk about happened when I was a paratrooper. I was in the 82nd Airborne, and excuse me, we were given peacekeeping duty in the Sinai Desert. Now, the Sinai Desert is 10 Commandments, Moses, that place. And it is a very hot, very dry area. And while I was there, we were there for 6 months. And our duty there was to sit in these checkpoints and basically make sure Israel didn't attack Egypt or vice versa. So we were there, and basically kind of as sitting ducks, is if there was a war that was going to break out, they thought, 300 paratroopers is going to make a difference. So we're there. And at one point, they have a competition, and it's like a decathlon competition, but it's with military skills. So I was a pretty fast runner, used to be anyway. And anyway, so I was picked to be on this decathlon team. So me and my buddies went up to this place in the north. And now the Americans occupy a place called South Camp, and that is at Sharm el Sheikh in Egypt. And we're going to another place which is occupied by the rest of the UN force, Colombians, Fijians, Belgians, et cetera, et cetera. So we went up there and we were going to kick the what out of these other people in this competition. And when we arrived, I was just kind of, we're just kind of getting our legs and feeling our way around. I ran into these Fijian guys. And I don't know if you know anything about Fijians, but they're like Samoans. They're big guys, right? And they're all part of tribes. And so they're there with their cousins and their brothers and their second cousins and brothers-in-law and whatever. So I run into this group of like 10 of them, and they're sitting drinking. It's like 3:00 in the afternoon. I'm going, you guys are drinking already? Wow. And so I sat down with them. I taught them how to play the beer hunter. The beer hunter? Oh. That's where you take a 6-pack of beer and you shake one up, you put it back in the 6-pack, and then you have to open it, and they just thought that was the funniest thing that they ever. So anyway, they had like 4 6-packs going around at the same time, and they said we had like a UFO, a saucer came down last night, and so they start telling me this story that sometime during the night, I think it was about 9:00. And let me back up by saying that we are in a circular, both camps are a circular perimeter. They've got this really tall, maybe 12-foot, 15-foot high fence around them with the barbed wire. And then there's guard towers. And then guys like me sit in the guard towers with machine guns and yada, yada, watch the desert. So what happened the night before was that a UFO, according to these guys, came down and sat right outside one of these guard towers. And the whole camp, they called in on the radio, you got something out here, and the whole camp went on alert. And these guys said, we were in our underwear and we are running for our positions and we've got our machine guns and we're ready to go. And everybody's screaming, don't shoot at it. Don't shoot at it. And so according to these Fijians, it sat there for, I don't know, like maybe 10 minutes. They had enough time to get out in their holes and watch it. And then it just slowly started moving off. And people were freaked out about it. Now, people would say, "Oh, well, you know what? What happened?" And really, well, the fact is that there's proof of this, and there's proof written up in a UN document, which I actually have right here, a copy of. And if you don't mind, if I can put on my glasses here, I will read you a little bit of the account.
Yeah.
And it's not that long. But if you don't mind, Jason, I would.
That'd be great. Yeah.
Okay. So I will read you about. Okay. So this article is called Lights in the Sky. If you're watching on, Jason's going to send me this podcast. So if I'll send him these pictures, I don't know if you're going to edit, Jason, but I'll be able to put these on my YouTube video. So if you want to see this, you can watch on Encounters USA, or if Jason puts it up, watch on his. All right. So the story is Lights in the Sky, and this is published in a magazine, and it's called the Sandpaper. It is the magazine of the Multinational Force and Observers, and that is the UN contingent in the Sinai Desert. So here we go. Lights in the Sky. El Gora, as we all know, was built upon the remains of an Israeli airfield, but how many people know the ancient history of El Gora? Few, perhaps, because of the sensitive nature of this area. Unfortunately, the true stories of some of the unusual occurrences that have taken place in the area are seldom heard. However, on Sunday, 3rd March, several members of the Colombian Battalion saw evidence of the ancient links the area has with an ancient civilization. At 21:05 hours, that's 9:05 to you and me, as the guard settled down for another quiet night in the watchtowers, the sentries along the southern fence became aware of a quiet humming in the air. At first, they paid little attention to it, but after it had been growing steadily louder for 10 minutes, they noticed a series of orange lights hovering beyond the southern fence. The sound was too quiet to be helicopters and the lights too close together for aircraft. The lights were grouped together in the groups of 6, a total of 3 groups in all. They always moved in an east to west direction for 2 minutes before returning, always moving at the same pace, but occasionally disappearing behind the sand dunes out in the desert. After the lights had been visible for some 10 to 15 minutes, they suddenly disappeared from sight. One moment they were hovering above about 2 miles from the camp, and the next moment they were rising rapidly, moving faster and faster, straight up into the sky. Within a matter of seconds, they were lost to sight among the stars. So it goes on, but basically that's the story of the encounter. And these Fijian guys, I mean, as I said, these are pretty big guys or tribal guys, and they were really freaked out by it. Yeah. And they just didn't want it to come back. So
yeah. Did they have any theories about what it wanted or what it was?
No, they just didn't want it to come back. They were scared. So.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty. I mean, you always hear these stories about like these ships or whatever they are being kind of curious about military installations. You know, mm-hmm. It seems like there's a lot of stories about them kind of being off in the distance, like observing or doing who knows what, right?
Right. Well, you make a very interesting point, because in the time that I was there, I mean, we did a lot of patrols in the desert. I never saw anything like that, but they really allude to the fact that particular area has a history of UFOs, and it alludes also to, I didn't see them, but they say in that article that there are like the Nazca lines in the Sinai.
Oh, wow.
So,
Okay.
yeah. So when you get into, the Exodus and Genesis and I've actually, Jason, written a book called Deceptions of the Ages. And I talk about the extraterrestrial factor in the Bible. And when you talk about, Moses getting the 10 Commandments and leaving Egypt, I mean, those would all be classified as UFO encounters today. So anyway, but that particular area that we were in, I guess it has some kind of significance. So
Yeah, I mean, it goes to that point of that people have been having these kind of strange encounters since we started recording things. As soon as we started writing things down, people started saying, "Oh yeah, this weird thing happened, and then this happened, and then this happened."
mm-hmm.
Like, it just keeps on happening. Yeah, it's very interesting to wonder. Also, there's that idea of like, do we project things onto these UFOs?
Mm-hmm.
I suppose it's also your understanding. Like, a primitive person might think maybe that they're fairies or some kind of magical being, but we think of them maybe as more technological. It'd be very interesting to get the actual answer, of course.
Yeah. And then another question is, I don't know what they have at North Camp, but secretly, I mean, people talk. We had a lot of very sophisticated weaponry in our camp that I know they didn't have in North Camp. And you would think that they would have probably been more interested in us, but maybe they knew we were probably going to use it on them. So they kept it safe and stayed with somebody that were not Americans. So,
do you have any personal theories about what they were doing out there?
I think they were just taking a look. I really don't know, and I get headaches just trying to imagine. But I think they're just kind of taking a look at what's going on there, and who knows what they do and why they do it.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
That's what we're trying to figure out on Encounters USA.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then you were talking about a ranch, I believe.
Yeah. So let's we can go ahead and skip to down to ECETI Ranch. I want to get rid of this. I got something in my face here. It's driving me crazy. Okay. So let me back up a little bit. I had heard, probably people that are listening to this are going, "Are you crazy? How could you not know about ECETI Ranch?" But you've heard of it, right, Jason?
I only heard about it because of your DM. I Googled it and I started watching.
Okay.
I think a YouTube channel, and I was quite surprised that I had not heard about this because it's practically in my backyard.
Exactly. I grew up in Sequim. I've been interested in UFOs and stuff all my life, and I had never heard of Mount Adams. I'd never heard of what's been going on at Hanford or Yakima or any of that stuff, or I would have been down there a long time ago. Also, let me say that I was over teaching in the Middle East from 2001 to 2013 while a lot of this was going on. So I have an alibi. But ECETI Ranch is down on the south side of Mount Adams. It's right across from Hood. What is it on? Anyway, it's right across from Oregon, the Oregon border. And I want to say the Hood River, but I'm probably wrong. I want to say it's the Columbia. But anyway, it's down right south of Mount Adams. And when I heard about it, it was, okay, I'm going there. And the reason I heard about it was because I was doing a story on the UFO encounters down in Tacoma. And right now, for some reason, the island, the Maury Island encounter. So I was doing a story, and I'm looking on the internet, and there's these guys called the UFO I team. And the head of the UFO I team, or one of the heads, is Michael Hall, who is a former Thurston County Supreme Court or Thurston County Justice, right? Okay. So he's a judge, and he's head of the UFO I team. And I said, I'd like to talk to you about Maury Island. And he said, well, I'm at ECETI Ranch. I said, what's ECETI Ranch? Well, we're going to videotape UFOs. Well, I'll be down there. I'll see you there. So that was pretty much how I heard about ECETI Ranch, and that's how I ran into the UFO I team. Now, before I tell you about what we saw down there, let me explain about the UFO I team. These guys, not only do you have this former Supreme Court justice or whatever he was in Thurston County, you also have these amazing engineers. They are all, Jason, I think you've gone, there you are. You've got engineers. I don't know where they work, but they they use like nom de guerre. They won't use their real names because they don't want to jeopardize their positions. But these guys are top of the line engineers. And I don't know exactly what all these people do, but they come out with this gadgetry that is just, some of it I've never even heard of before. So I went down there, and these guys have this whole array set up of cameras, infrared detectors, cell phones, etc. And they're getting ready to videotape these UFOs. And I'm skeptical, as I told you. These things avoid me like the plague. I've never, seen anything, and I've never even come close to seeing anything that I would say, oh yeah, that was a UFO. But these guys got set up, and when the lights went out, then the show began. And I will say, okay, so first of all, let me say that there's a lot of traffic. There are satellites going by, space stations going by, yada, yada. So these guys have these whatever apps that they can tell where, that's the space station and that's this satellite, et cetera, et cetera. But there were a few of them where they were not there. And some of these were these pretty large balls of light. And no aircraft I've ever heard of is just a large ball of light. And so I would say that night, we watched from maybe 10 o'clock to maybe 1:30. And it gets freezing cold down there. Let me remind everybody. So be careful about that. But 5 things that I just couldn't even begin to say that were aircraft, and people said that's not the space station, it's not this, it's not that, and they were so big that that they were not any aircraft that I'm aware of. So whatever those things were, James Gilliland, who owns the ranch, has this idea of what they are. Other people have these ideas of what they are. All I know is they were really strange balls of light. So I was able to interview Michael Hall and the UFO I team. And so they gave me the lowdown on what they do, and actually invited me to a couple of their investigations and kind of adopted me like a wayward podcaster. And so that was very nice. But the best thing that happened, I hope I didn't just pop my mic. The best thing that happened was the next night we went up to Mount Adams, and there's a place called Lake Takalaka or something. And so they set up their equipment outside of that based on or facing Mount Adams. And right before the sun was down, there was this chandelier. I don't even know how to describe it. It really looked like a round carousel like chandelier. And it just very slowly descended right behind Mount Adams. Wow. And so anybody on the Yakima side would have been able to see it. All the people in the campground that were around us, they saw it. And I don't know what that was, but that really looked like a halo, a bunch of lights together, just kind of slowly descending down into Mount Adams. And the guys that are involved in these investigations, one is Lee Strauss, another one is Anders. I can't remember what his last name is. These are not the real names, so it doesn't matter anyway. But they seem to be convinced, and I haven't been able to interview them yet, but they seem to be convinced that they have found a portal at Mount Adams. Okay. So I've done investigations down at Mount Shasta, and I've talked to people that say they've seen UFOs going in and out of that mountain. So Mount Adams, who knows? But there is so much weird stuff going on down there. And then, as I was saying earlier, I interviewed a couple, and this guy grew up down around Hanford. His friends and relatives work at Hanford. and there is just no end of UFO activity there. So I don't know what's bringing them in, but they're definitely there. And if you want to see UFOs, I don't know how it's fairly easy to for me to get reservations there. So you just go to ECETIranch.com or .org or whatever, or actually it's ECETI. I think it's ECETI.org. And just, you can book a tent thing, book a yurt, whatever. But anyway, and I'm not guaranteeing, because you have to be careful of the cloud cover, etc.
Yeah.
But I saw something down there. I don't know what it was. So there's my ECETI Ranch, Jason.
Yeah. And, for people so we're both kind of in the Washington state area, Pacific Northwest, I believe. For people outside of this area, Hanford, Washington was part of the bomb program back in World War II. And it's considered by a lot of people like one of the most polluted by toxic waste possibly in the world. So they had tons of secret stuff. There's tons of vats of horrible radioactive garbage basically there. So you could definitely see why people from somewhere else might be a little concerned about this place possibly.
Mm-hmm.
And you said that the chandelier type ship, do you see actually go into the mountain, or did it go like behind the mountain?
No, it dropped right down behind okay. Like on the side of it, and just dropped right down.
Yeah.
So just amazing. And it was so beautiful.
And so for the people that say that they think there's a portal there, do they believe the portal is like in a specific location, or is it kind of the mountain itself? Do you know?
I don't know. I think that people that think about portals think it's a specific location.
Okay.
People are you into remote viewing at all?
I know about it. Yeah. Yes.
Oh, okay. So I've seen people that have remote viewed Mount Shasta.
Yeah.
And they say that there is nothing there now, but at one point before it was like a base, that there was a lot of activity there, but there doesn't seem to be, he couldn't find any activity there now. So,
okay.
So, since we threw remote viewing in there, we're going to have to open that Pandora box just a little bit.
Huh.
I use remote viewing because it seems fairly credible based on the fact that the CIA was using them, the Army was using them, and their data does seem to be confirmed with more information that we seem to be getting. And so I did a podcast. You know Carrie Cassidy of Project Camelot?
Oh, no. Maybe a little familiarity, but I can't say for sure.
Okay. Well, I just did a podcast with her and a remote viewer this is a remote viewer's Dr. Simeon Heine, and no relation, but also from Wazoo. Let's say this. As a person with a professional background like Dr. Heine seems to have a hard time with remote viewers, and he's been doing a remote viewing for 25 years, and he won't say anything about something that has not been confirmed, right? So we're doing our interview, and I say, well, what about Joe McMoneagle? Because in the whole point of the podcast is what is on Mars? Who is on Mars? The Israelis just said Americans are working with aliens on Mars, and this is the head of the Israeli space program. And other people have said Americans are working on Mars, and you go, well, yeah, but these people are kind of nutcases. But when the head of the Israeli space program comes out and says, no, the Americans are working with aliens on Mars, well, why is that guy not in a loony bin? And or is there something to what he's saying? So the point of the whole podcast is let's use these remote viewers, because the government's not going to tell us, but the government used remote viewers, and now those remote viewers are on the loose, and they've remote viewed the universe. And so one example, and Dr. Heine is saying, oh, well, remote viewing the solar system, there's just no evidence, which is not true. And here's one example, and I'll give you another one also. But Ingo Swann, who was the premier remote viewer for the Army for a long time. And to tell you where Ingo Swann came from, or how he got his start, he was in the Army. He walked into a room of computers in Europe and shut them all down with his mind. And if you've seen that movie, The Men Who Stare at Goats, that general pulled him in. He said, "Young man, did you shut off my computers?" He said, "I sure did." He said, "That is fantastic. Can you do it again?" So, and then it was, okay, well, what can this guy do with his mind? So, so this guy, they tasked him to remote view Jupiter. And he said, well, okay, so I'm out there and there's a ring. There's a ring around Jupiter. No, you're on Saturn. He said, no, this is Jupiter, but it's a very faint ring. It's very far away. And they said, well, okay, so they chalked that up to he got that wrong. He remote viewed Saturn until they sent the probe out and found the ring, right? And then another instance is, and this is why I wanted to bring the show together to find out what's on Mars, is because Joe McMoneagle, have you heard of him?
It sounds familiar.
He's another military remote viewer. In fact, he's probably the best. Well, Ingo Swann was the best. And then Joe McMoneagle, Ed Dames, those guys would all say, well, no, I'm the best. But Joe McMoneagle was tasked to remote view Mars. And I just want to preface this by saying, when these people are tasked to interview these things or to view these things, they don't know what they're looking at. They're given a coordinate, they're giving something, but they have no idea where it is, when it is, how it is. They're just told, this is the target. Tell me what you see. And so he saw a pyramid, and it was built next to a crater, a meteor crater, whatever. And so they said, this crater is like a mile high. It's huge. It's way bigger than our pyramids. And so his handler said, well, go back to when the pyramid was built. So Joe McMoneagle went back 1 million years, and there was a civilization on Mars, but it was just towards the end of its existence, because according to what Joe McMoneagle, he asked this alien, he said, what are you doing? He said, well, we're hibernating. We're waiting for somebody to come back. And so this opens up this whole thing of, and this is the point of my last podcast, was, did they go to Antarctica? Did they build a civilization there? And why do the descriptions that Joe McMoneagle describes these people on Mars are the same people that they found supposedly in Antarctica? Very tall, very thin, very smart, but they match the same. So as I said in the very beginning on Encounters USA, we look for the crazy stories and we see what matches. And what is the coincidence or whatever, where tall people on Mars 1 million years ago, and then tall people found supposedly in a flash frozen civilization in Antarctica. So that's on Encounters USA, that's why we use remote viewers, because the government's not going to tell us the truth. We have testimony, but the government relied on remote viewers, so I think we can rely on them.
I know there's people that kind of offer training for remote viewing. Have you tried doing it yourself at all?
No, and I never would.
Yeah.
And the reason that I wouldn't is this, is the world is like, you want to stay on. I don't know. I love the scientific method. I love verifiable stuff. And when you start talking about things that you can't verify, like UFOs, Bigfoot, whatever, those things are verifiable because there's physical evidence of them. So that's one thing. But I had this Dr. Simeon Heine, who teaches remote viewing and has for 25 years. And has the same opinion I have. If you can't verify it, what good is it? Right. And so I don't do it because, so let's say I'm really good at it. Right. And then there's something that really then, oh, I can remote view and I'm a great remote viewer. But then there's something that really matters. Maybe I need to win the lottery or something. But then it doesn't work. So for me, I'm good with my own abilities, and I don't really. I don't really have an interest in doing that. If somebody was ever to say, well, why don't you sit down and try it and we'll show you how to do it just as like a parlor trick or something, I do it. But I wouldn't do it because I don't think I have those skills, and I don't think I'd base anything on what I ever remote viewed.
Earlier you talked about not really having that many experiences yourself, as if they avoid you. I've noticed that some people have that. Like, I feel like I have that too, where I've never experienced anything. If anything, they're avoiding me. But other people, like, they seem to be attracted to. Do you have any personal theories about why there's some people that are kind of repel them, and other people kind of attract these strange things?
I have a very crazy theory.
Okay. Yeah.
And you want me to say it, don't you? You want me to put my neck on the chopping block. Well, I think I really hate to even say it. I have an idea that, and this is going to really sound crazy. So if I have a rabbit hole there, you might want to hop into it. I grew up a Mormon, Latter-day Saint, right? And I think that because we're given a blessing when we're first born, and that we're baptized, and that I believe that we are protected from those things. And I'm not going to go too far into it, but I wrote a book called Deceptions of the Ages, another plug for my book. But the Mormons, or Latter-day Saints, are the only really Christian religion that has always, accepted the idea of UFOs, aliens, etc. Because in our scriptures it says, "Worlds without number have I created him in the name of his only begotten." So, of my only begotten. So I don't want to get into a big Christian thing here, but Latter-day Saints do believe there are many worlds, many thousands, worlds without number. And why wouldn't those people be coming here? So in my book, I cite very quickly the fact that Joseph Smith, who was responsible for, if you're a Mormon, translating the Book of Mormon, his idea, and he told a guy that later left the church that there are like good extraterrestrials and there are bad extraterrestrials. And there is the idea of Freemasonry exists all throughout and not that Latter-day Saints are Freemasons, but he seemed to think that the idea of Freemasonry and its relationships, it's what it does, not a Freemason, so I don't know, but that is prevalent throughout the universe. And that there are handshakes and all these things are not only for people on the earth, but these are when you meet another being, you can tell, is he part of the club, or is he or she not part of the club? And so going back to your question, why don't these things appear to some people? I think that people who are Latter-day Saints, I don't think they have. I've never actually heard of anybody that's even had an abduction experience, and I've been looking very hard to find somebody that has. So that's my crazy theory.
Fascinating. Yeah, it's very fascinating. Yeah. Do you have any plans of returning to the ranch?
Yeah. Actually, we are trying to put a joint project together. I've got Jody Cook of the North American Dogman Project. I have Todd Neese, who is American Primate Conservancy, and I've got the UFO I team. And we were going to do it last summer, but the COVID thing. So we're looking the first break we can get. We're going to try to get down there and get some good weather but what we're trying to do is we're trying to basically occupy like a whole grid square on a map with equipment and people. And we want, because Bigfoot is down there, aliens are down there, and who knows, maybe we'll get lucky. Maybe we'll see a dog man, but we want to just put a project together, go down there and see what shows up. So I want to get remote viewers involved. I'd like to get Stephen Greer and have him do his fifth dimension contact thing and try to bring us in some aliens. But that's our next project for the ECETI Ranch.
Sounds very exciting. There's one more thing that we hope to do once, this whole COVID thing's over.
Yeah, right. Like it's ever going to be over. But Jason, you're welcome. If you want to, I'll keep in touch and you can come too. It'll be a hoot.
Yeah.
Really fun guys. Really fun guys.
Yeah. I'm very excited to learn more about this place. Cause like I said, it's just right in my backyard. Like I hear about things very, very far away. I'm like, well, I'm never going to see that.
Yeah. Well, that's what I thought. When I went down there, I said, I'm never going to see anything, but the lights went down and the party started. And so, So anyway, I'm not guaranteeing anything though.
Yeah. But it is a hot spot. There's those places on Earth that seem to be just more likely,
Yeah. And I'm telling you, if you, I saw like 5 that I just said, I don't know what those are. If I had seen one, that really just made it the whole trip worth it. So.
Yeah. My goodness. Well, thank you so much for your time today. Where can people find your show again?
Well, we are at encountersusa.com and we have a YouTube channel, the Encounters USA, and a podcast, Encounters USA. So if you are wanting to tell a story and you'd like another venue, then we'd love to hear it on Encounters USA too. So, but Jason, thank you so much for having me on the show. And I'm surprised you remembered me from last summer, but that's reassuring. Yeah. Hopefully the voters will next year or next election.
Yeah. So thank you once again for your time. I really appreciate it.
Okay. All right, Jason. So we're not live or anything, are we?
No.
Okay.
No,
so So go ahead and No.
If you want, we can splice something in if you had something you wanted to say.
Yeah, I was no, it's your show. I was just gonna do my ending, but it's your show, so.
Oh, you can if you want, because I'll be giving you this video.
Heines here. Just want to remind you, if you like this kind of content, subscribe to this channel, whether you're listening on podcast or watching on YouTube. Also, go to encountersusa.com for more videos and podcasts, all archived for your convenience. Also, we have a wonderful Encounters USA blog, as well as an Encounters USA paranormal shop for all of your paranormal apparel. So, not only can you watch your back, you can put some of our designs on yours as well. So we'll see you on down the road on Encounters USA. Now, enjoy a few minutes of outtakes with Jason Rigdon and Matthew Heines.
It will. So I'm recording on my end. Let's see.
Now it says, can you Dropbox it to me or Google Docs it to me?
Yeah. So I'm recording right now, so I can. Okay. Do you want audio or the audio and the video?
I'd like both.
Cool. Yep. So I will. I've been just uploading them. I have like a location on the web where I just kind of throw these files. So when we get done, let's see. Yes, when we get done, I will upload them and then just send you the link.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jason, can you give me 1 minute? Not even 1 minute. I'll be right back. Maybe that was 1 minute. Okay.
All right.
So had to put on the.
Oh yeah. Okay,
so I'm ready when you are, and it's nice that you're going to be asking the questions.
Yeah, let me just check to make sure everything's actually running. All right.
You know, Jason, before we go officially, you interviewed me last summer, didn't you?
Yes.
Did
Yes.
you for Seattle
Talk to Seattle?
podcasters
Yeah.
or
Yeah. Talk to Seattle. Yeah.
yeah.
So trying to do something a little bit different, maybe a little bit, fun, interesting, go away from the local politics. Because, local politics is,
exactly.
It's a special thing. I'll be nice and say, yeah, that was, I interviewed. That was one of those times where I ended up doing the thing where I was like releasing an episode every single day because there's so many people coming on the show.
No.
And the editing of that kind of schedule, it's too much.
Yeah.
Especially when you're not getting paid for it. It's just, just volunteering to kind of do these interviews and you're like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. God, that must have been a record last time. There were, I don't know, there's 34 people just running for governor. So
Yeah. It was because of COVID, if I remember right, didn't they get rid of the filing fee? So it really made it open to a lot more people that.
Exactly. And you know what? I knew that because I wrote him an email. I said, what do we do about the filing fee? I can't get signatures. I'm not paying for it.
Yeah.
They said there's no filing fee. So when I talked to these other guys that I was running in the same contest with, they said, what? You didn't have to pay a fee?
Yeah. I wish I would do that again this year. Oh no. Let's see. We seem to have a little freeze there. Oh dear. Let's see. Is that on my end? Let's see. We seem to have a little Zoom hiccup here. I'm trying to figure out what's going on. Huh. Everything's looking okay on my end. Goodness. I don't know if you can hear me. You seem to have frozen on my screen. So I'm trying to figure out what might be going on. Everything looks good on my end. I wonder if it's hey, we're back. We had like a little Zoom freeze there. Let's see. And sorry, I think you're muted. Let's see. Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure. One of those wonderful Zoom freezes happened there. So yeah.
So we're still recording, right?
Yes, we are still recording. So
are we going to be limited to the 40 minutes or are we?
My 11 o'clock canceled, so you can do whatever you want.
Great. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't have anything till way later. That's great. Yeah, I've been surprised how many people have been willing to just come on this show and just tell their stories and stuff. It's been pretty fantastic. We have had a medium, some ghost hunters, had a couple artists on that. Tomorrow we're gonna have a guy on who he's an artist, but I guess the aliens are making the art.
Wow.
And he's got a whole book collection coming out. So that will be an interesting thing. He says he's got some good videos that he would like to share. So I'm very curious because he says he was explaining about how this one painting was done by very small, like lights or these little UFOs, like little tiny ones. And he was saying about how they're only as big as like an insect, which is also kind of an interesting, like little subcategory of UFOs. Is like those tiny, like the insect size ones, which, if you think about it, like, okay, well, that could happen.
Yeah.
Like tiny little ones be a little scary.
I mean, we could be the tiny people to somebody else. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
kind of a Gulliver's Travels phenomenon.
Yeah, that'd be wild. Because there's no reason to believe that the size should necessarily be consistent across the universe. It might be wild.
Mm-hmm.
So so this is going to be for a podcast called The Podcast of Mystery. My name is Jason Rigdon, and do you have any questions all for me before we kind of jump into it?
I do not. Let's roll.
So usually the way I have these kind of work is I just have the guest just introduce themselves. So just for you, just your name and try to plug your show.
Okay.
If you want.
I don't want to. It's your show.
Okay. So I will, as soon as we get done, once Zoom does this whole recording thing, I will upload it to my server and then send you the link to the Zoom recording.
Okay. So have you got your ending and all that?
Yeah. So actually, I record my beginnings and endings separately.
okay.
We do our so usually I give like a little intro. We go to like a commercial, and then the guest's voice happens immediately, and then we go from there. So it's kind of like a little beats and stuff. So and we've kind of been alternating between people having smaller segments. So it's going to be kind of there'll be multiple guests on per episode. So I got to decide who kind of fits together, because I don't necessarily want two UFO stories together, but I was like trying to figure out how, each episode can kind of fit together, because I've been doing so many interviews. I have to this weekend, yes, will be when I start stitching them together and try to make them into actual cohesive episodes. I'm very excited about it.
Yeah, I couldn't do that. I'm not. That's just, my brain would blow up. I just have to pump. I do them, I edit them, and I throw them out. That's it.
Yeah.
Well, so Jason, do you need any? Are you going to edit anything in? Do you want pictures or something? Or
I think I'll be good, because I haven't really been doing. I want to get better at social media for the episodes, and have the art. But realistically, that's something that I need to start working on maybe next month, and just kind of audio stuff right now, because it's easy to go down that rabbit hole and you're like, oh, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this. So I'm like trying to like have my things of like, oh, there's like, people do those little audiograms on Twitter, so you can like listen to a little preview. I was like, oh, I want to do that too. But I'm like, okay, well, how long does it actually take to make one of those? It's not just click a button, right?
It takes a day.
Yeah. So thank you for coming on the show.
So Jason, what's the story how are you going to get this to me?
Yep. So I am going to upload them to my server, and then I will just send you an email with a link to the directory that's on my server.
Okay.
So download them right there. Yeah.
Okay. So I will do a video and a podcast.
Okay.
And a blog. So
there we go.
But it's probably going to be not till about Thursday or Friday.
Yeah. My episode probably won't be released, I'm guessing, maybe a week or two, and then I'll have them kind of lined up. But luckily, we're not doing like time sensitive stuff.
Yeah.
Kind of promote a book that comes out this Friday or something.
Yeah. So Jason, I just want to tell you, you have a perfect voice.
Oh, thank you.
When you interviewed me the first time, I said, God, that guy, I learned a lot from you.
Oh, wow.
You taught me how to stop and let people talk, right? So you have a great voice for it, and you have a good name, mystery or podcast of mystery. So I think you got something, but you need you need a background.
Yeah. Well, so I usually just most of my stuff is just the audio. Once again, trying to scale things back, so I'm not like, there's things I want to do, but you're like, I'm trying to be realistic. Like, what are you good at, as opposed to what you want to do?
Yeah, exactly.
So it's going to be mostly audio, and the podcast of mystery has been a funny thing, because I think I've owned that domain for like over a decade, and it's been the show that I keep on thinking about doing. If you go back, probably the Wayback Machine has like 4 different iterations of this show, and I was like, just do what you're kind of comfortable doing of interviewing people. Like, don't try to be like a monologue, or don't present yourself as an expert, because you're not an expert.
Yeah.
So, and also like my first episodes were where I wanted to tell people about different incidents, there's like tons of shows doing that, but also I would say like an incident, like, it doesn't matter what it is. And then I would feel like I would need to tell the kind of the second half of it. 'Cause like a lot of the old, UFO stories have like a second half, which is kind of, sort of the debunkers kind of thing. Like, you find out more and more things about maybe the person or maybe the sighting. And then it felt like I was doing a debunking show, and I was like, well, that's not really the flavor I'm going for. Like, so it's very difficult. I had this idea of, there's this kind of this philosophical idea of, you're either a soldier or a scout, and soldier wants to win. Like they've got a mission, they want to make that mission, whereas the scouts out there just gathering information. Mm-hmm. And I felt like my other shows where I was doing the warrior thing or the soldier thing where I was having a mission. Like I wanted to like talk about this instance and give all the details and stuff. Whereas like what I really like doing is this kind of scout thing where I'm just like talking to people and gathering information and hearing their stories and stuff like that. So I'm much more comfortable now.
Yeah. And you are very good at that. You're a master at that.
Oh,
I'm more of the obnoxious soldier type. So.
Yeah. But there's room for everybody. It's just a matter of finding also like what feels good inside, right? Because you're doing, I'm sure you you do this of like, it takes a lot of work, and you have to feel good about what you're doing. Otherwise, I mean, I felt like a lot of dissidence inside where I was like, is this really what I want to do? Like now I'm feeling like these things are really flowing now.
Yeah. Well, as you get your comments and people say, "Oh, I really like that show. I'm glad you did it," whatever, then it's worth it. And of course, when you start to sell things from your show, so
yeah.
But you do a great job, and I really thought you were a great interviewer. So that's definitely your forte.
Yeah, we'll be doing more. We'll be doing more Talk to Seattle interviews with people running. I know there's going to be just tons of people running for mayor of Seattle, and it's going to be weird.
It's going to be, but the only thing is I'm too much of a smart aleck. I could not do that and just not stop cracking up. Okay. Well, Jason, thank you so much. And you also have a perfect name, Jason Rigdon.
Oh yeah. Well, thank you so much. Have a great day.
Jason, take care. You too. Bye.